Seeking reparations and straining relations, Greece demands compensation from Germany for the Nazi occupation more than 70 years ago, calling it a moral obligation. When should crimes during conflict be consigned to history? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zaidan. It's an emotive issue going back to the 1940s, yet one that Greece's new Prime Minister says is still fresh in the memory. Alexis Tsipras is talking about the atrocities committed during the Nazi occupation of Greece during the Second World War. Tens of thousands of Greek civilians died from starvation and reprisals. The number has been estimated to be as high as 300,000. And Greece's newly elected leader has reignited debate over reparation and compensation. Tsipras says Germany owes Greece more than $170 billion for the destruction caused at the time, a demand likely to further strain relations between two countries already squabbling over Greek demands to renegotiate the terms of a $260 billion bailout. Well, Germany insists the question of wartime compensation has been settled. But in a passionate address to Parliament, Tsipras said a deal reached in 1960 didn't go far enough.
This agreement, however, did not concern compensation for the damages suffered by the country, but compensation for the victims of Nazism in Greece. And, of course, in no case did it concern either the forced occupation loan or claims for damages due to war crimes, due to the nearly total destruction of infrastructure in the country and the dissolution of the economy during the war and occupation. I want to assure you that the Greek government will work tirelessly in order to, in equal footing and through dialogue, in the framework of a sincere negotiation, help to find a solution to the complex problems that Europe faces. We will work to fully honor our obligations, but at the same time we will work to meet all unfulfilled obligations to Greece and the Greek people.
Now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is adamant her country has honoured its wartime obligations and would not be revisiting the controversy. A spokesman said, "It is our firm belief that questions of reparations and compensation have been legally and politically resolved. We should concentrate on current issues and hopefully what will be a good future." Well, the current issues being, of course, Greece's bailout and the significant part Germany is playing in that. And a group campaigning for reparations in Greece has been eager to keep the two issues separate.
Some are asking why this issue was brought up now. The Council, which has been fighting for decades and has shown our struggle for this issue, is fighting regardless of the present events of the day. Nor could we have imagined when we started this struggle that Greece would be in this difficult position, and we do not connect one issue with the other. We have a saying, and that saying is justice, not revenge, justice. We have nothing against the Germans. In fact, we think it's important that relations between the two countries are friendly and sincere.
Let's bring our guests into the show then. Joining us from Berlin is Uli Bruckner, a historian and professor at Stanford University, Berlin. In Athens, we have Anastasia Giamali, a journalist at the Dawn newspaper. And completing our panel in Rome is Eleonora Polli, a researcher at the Italian Institute for International Affairs. Let's start with Uli. Is Greek talk of reparations a demand for justice or a political distraction?
Well, the problem has different dimensions. From a question of whether it's just, I think so, but this doesn't answer the question about fairness. From that point of view, we see very different opinions also in Germany, because we also saw compensation for everything that has been done to forced labor workers in German companies. That happened in the 90s and the early years of the millennium. So there are different ways to respond to responsibility in the past. But I don't think that this is the problem. The problem is that it is instrumentalized for political purposes which do not have much to do with responsibility and justice. It is more a bargain chip in the situation of the debt crisis.
Interesting. Let me take that point to Anastasia. Doesn't the timing of this issue raise suspicions? I can already see raising your head in disagreement here, but hear me out. Is it just a coincidence, some might ask, that the Greek Prime Minister is raising this issue while at the same time trying to renegotiate the terms of financial support from Germany. Is that just a coincidence, Anastasia?
We're talking about two completely different and separate issues. The war reparations problem, this issue is a timeless issue for the Greek society. It's not a retaliation, it's not a political feint, it's something that even when Syriza and Alexis Tsipras, as a prime minister, was in opposition, was saying that this is something we must fight for. And also, the past government, I remember vividly Eleftherios Venizelos, the previous foreign minister and leader of PASOK, who was the junior party in the government coalition, saying that Greece has never cancelled her demands towards Germany for reparations. Actually, last year, the state accounting offices issued a whole study about how much Germany owes to Greece, which was around 160 billion euros.
All right, interesting point. Eleonora, why shouldn't Athens ask for reparations, even at this point in time, no matter what the suspicions or allegations might be that it's simply playing politics? If it's owed money that it hasn't been paid, and now is a good time because there's a lot of attention on Greece, why not ask for your rights?
Well, I think the problem with compensation was already solved in the aftermath of World War II, when countries met in London and decided what to do with compensation. And then in the 60s, Germany paid part of the compensation. And in the 90s, again, after the reunification, there was an agreement between Germany and the ally, and compensation were not part of the deal. So I think that if Germany or also Italy wanted to ask back some compensation, they should have done at that time.
I'm sure, forgive me for interrupting, Eleonora. What do you make of the argument? I'm sure you've heard it, that, for example, the Paris Reparations Conference in 1945 estimated that Germany was responsible for $7 billion worth of damage, and that money hasn't been paid. Whatever Germany, the argument goes, whatever Germany has paid since then doesn't take away from the rest of the money that it should have paid.
Yes, but I think that now that we are in the European Union, this problem of compensation should have been reconciled. I think being part of the European Union means also to find synergies behind conflicts. So I think this is a political strategy used by Greece to distract the attention from the debt problem and use their compensation issue with Germany. From a political point of view, both because by asking for compensation, Syriza and so Tsipras can obtain more legitimization from the people, and also from a sort of European level, because I think what Tsipras is trying to do is to ask for a moratorium like Germany did in the past.
All right, I can see Anastasia wants to get in. All right, sorry, I can see Anastasia wants to get in here. I want to know your response to that. Didn't Germany already pay, I think it was 115 million Deutschmarks in 1960? Weren't there already agreements?
It did, but
now we're in the EU, the argument goes. Isn't it time to let this rest?
First of all, as far as what Germany has paid to Greece, since the start of this conflict, considers this as a part of the payment, only a first payment, and expects more to be followed. As far as the European dream and this whole European incentive is concerned, especially in this situation where countries are being punished for being indebted, and of course I'm not putting the two on an equal scale, this is a totally different issue, but let's not talk about integration when we have people suiciding because of the crisis, especially in Greece. We have had a humanitarian crisis that led to destruction. We cannot talk about European integration and of a peaceful finding solutions when the situation is like the way it is in Greece. Of course, the Greek government does not put does not see these two issues as being equal. And as I told you before, it's not a political feint or a retaliation.
All right, okay, let me go back to Uli. Whether this is playing politics, a political distraction or not, I'm curious to know what you think the impact will be on the talks going on to try and renegotiate some of the terms of financial support for Greece. Is it going to make perhaps the German side more flexible or antagonize the German side when you have the Greek side talking about reparations?
Well, I don't think it will have a practical impact on the development of the negotiations or the German attitude. But I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are with civilization at this point in time in Europe. There have been times of nationalism where we were fighting against each other, and this whole attitude of horse trading, you own me this, and if you don't do this, then I flex muscles, described the history of this continent for centuries. And with the establishment of a European integration project, we decided to be more civilized and to find ways to moderate our conflicts in an institutionalized, in a mannered form. Now we see a different culture, that it is more about naming and shaming and accusing, and this is more for the domestic side because the government in Greece decided to move to sort of heroic politicians style, which is not the style of the continental European politicians, and this is the practical outcome. So on the one hand, it's directed towards the domestic
but is that really
debate.
the case? Forgive me, Uli, for interrupting you, but is that really the case? I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the argument too that says the so-called civilized continental European approach by many of the powers is only because most of the victorious continental European powers got what they wanted at the end of World War II. When you look at how reparations and payback was carved up, great powers received more compensation for their war effort than the deaths, destruction and suffering of some of the quote-unquote smaller allies like Greece. It's easy, in other words, to talk about continental civilization when you've benefited and you're part of the victorious, right?
I'm talking about the institutional setting of the European Union, that we don't do politics by instrumentalizing World War II. This was something one could see with nationalist parties that joined the European Union with eastward enlargement. They tried it once and then they learned the lesson that this is not what we do, because it's a different concept and it works pretty well, not on the basis of reparations in general, but on daily basis, that we don't fight with each other. We do it through an institutional way of finding compromises. And that also requires a different rhetoric and a different style. So that's why the German government is very relaxed in its response, and I don't see any negative consequences for the negotiations.
All right, Anastasia, briefly.
I completely agree, yet we must decide, and I will quote Alexis Tsipras again. He said on Wednesday on Parliament that we should decide whether we want a German Europe or a European Europe. It's okay. There is no intention to instrumentalize anything. But sometimes we should decide whether the Europe we dream about is a Europe of solidarity.
Now, how can, Anastasia, to bring a counter-argument too, how can you talk about a Europe of solidarity when the Greek government is threatening to seize German assets, as the Justice Minister is suggesting? That kind of destroys the whole idea of European unity, doesn't it?
Greece is not threatening to seize German assets. There is a 15-year-old Supreme Court decision that allows the Greek government to seize German assets in order to compensate the survivors of World War II. This is a Supreme Court decision, and Paraskevopoulos, the Justice Minister, said that the order should be finally met. I believe the order should be given, he said. I think that if we accept the law and there is a decision, why not enact it? Of course, I'm not in favor or against it. I'm just thinking that this could be a possibility. And where we're talking about German assets, we're not talking solely about the Goethe Institute, which is an amazing cultural institution in Athens, but about diplomatic cars and stuff like this.
All right. Well, it's hard to imagine a war or conflict, occupation or invasion where there hasn't been at times some perceived form of injustice, and addressing them is seen by those aggrieved as a necessary part of the process of healing and reconciliation. Well, right now, Japan's neighbours, for example, are waiting to see if Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will uphold an apology for the suffering it caused during the Second World War. In December, France and the US reached a $60 million agreement to pay reparations to Holocaust victims transported by the French National Railway to Nazi concentration camps. And last month, Russia's lower house of parliament set up a working group to calculate how much money it should demand for German destruction and atrocities during the Second World War. Eleonora, once you get into the question of reparations, there's a lot to talk about, isn't there?
Yes, there is a lot. And I think Germany, well, as you know, Germany has paid back reparation to Israel for the Holocaust, for instance. But asking now Germany to pay back reparation for Greece, even if maybe it will be just, it will open a sort of schizophrenic situation in Europe, because then also other countries or other individuals could go after Germany and ask for compensation, like France or Italy, and citizens in Italy and in France. And this will cause a collapse, economic collapse of Germany, of course, and also a political collapse of the European institutions.
But why
because,
then,
course,
Eleonora, why are
Germany
some groups allowed to ask for reparations and others not? There does seem to be a basic sort of justice question here.
Yes, I think that since Germany and Greece are part of the same union, this issue should have been solved years ago, not now while we are dealing a Eurozone crisis. And this is the main answer. And I think, again, this question has been instrumentalized, politically instrumentalized, in order to find a solution to the Greek debt crisis and political legitimacy at the internal level.
All right. Uli in Berlin, do you think that too much attention is paid to Germany and Germany's wartime history, too little to what other great colonial powers did during the Second World War or before? I mean, should we be looking at what Britain or France should have to pay to Asia, to Africa, to parts of the Middle East, where, I'm sure as you're aware, there's a long list of claims and massacres and people wanting some form of justice or reparations for the colonial legacy?
Well, as I said already, the whole European integration project is about reconciliation. And the reason why we managed to live together in peace with France and Germany is that we pressed the reset button after World War II and did not start a name and shame game in which the one country owes this and the other one is guilty for that, which doesn't mean that Germany doesn't take responsibility. It does. And Greece also received a lot of money since it joined in 1981 as transfers from the various funds of the European Union to express solidarity and the commitment that we are in the same Europe and not in a German Europe, as the propaganda now instrumentalizes to make Germany look bad. But if it's not just about Germany, then it's interesting why, for example, there's no talk about Bulgaria and Italy that also occupied Greece. So it's clearly a domestic and a more specifically German political campaign, which doesn't have much to do with the actual content, but with the overall situation in which the Greek government finds itself.
In 2013, 14 Caribbean nations began legal action to try and sue Britain, France and Holland for slavery reparations. Anastasia, what do you make of the argument that once this gets opened, where does it end?
Well, I would like to quote an economic historian, Albrecht Ritschl, who gave an interview in Spiegel in 2011. He said that Germany is the king when it comes to debt. And he's referring to all these reparations that haven't been paid towards all these countries. Where it ends, I think that, and as far as the name and shaming is concerned, I don't see a very friendly approach when all the European media are bad-mouthing the finance minister, Yanis Varoufakis, about his style or the way he talks. Now, second, I see it end with a just and moral and ethical solution for Greece, and there are three demands that can be dealt either separately or as a package. The one towards the country, the other towards the victims and the survivors, and the third one regarding the compulsory loan that the Greek Central Bank was forced to give to the Nazi forces, which is now evaluated to be around 11 billion.
All right, Eleonora, you know, if you take a step back from this and think about it for a second, if we're supposed in Europe, there's supposed to be in a new era of integration where issues like this shouldn't be coming up. The fact that they are coming up, does that not itself say that there is perhaps a lack of international or European continental mechanism to deal with these issues, that there are issues which are outstanding and maybe international courts of some sort or regional courts should be empowered to deal with this?
Well, first of all, I just want to remind something. Because of compensation asked to Germany after World War I, this compensation caused the beginning of World War II. So when we ask for reparation and compensation in a time of crisis like now, we always have to think about political and international repercussions. Second of all, I think, yes, we don't need another international court to deal with this issue. I think this issue can be solved politically through synergy, through political dialogues between member countries. Yes, we have the International Court of Justice again, but this problem, I think, was solved in the 90s through the agreement between Germany and the Allies. Mm-hmm. So I don't think at the moment we need another court to discuss about, another European court to discuss about this issue that can be solved politically. Okay. I think there is the need to find a compromise between the parts.
Eleonora doesn't feel that there's need for perhaps action at the courts. Anastasia, I want to get your feeling on this because the Rome Statute, for example, of the International Criminal Court now recognises that victims of crimes can seek reparation action through the ICC court orders. Is that a potential avenue?
I think it is, but I really think, and I will agree with Eleonora on the matter, that a political dialogue is the best solution. These issues are very important and should be dealt through discussion, but where the two parties are considered to be equal and not accept every opinion, every solution that the stronger one, in this case Germany, offers.
All right, I'm going to get a final thought
because
from Uli.
This is European Union, it's all about.
I think we've got about a minute left. So Uli, I want to get your thoughts on where this whole discussion is going to end when it comes to two things: reparations and attempts to renegotiate financial support for Greece. Where do you think those two pictures, is Germany going to pay reparations and is Greece going to get a better deal or a modified deal?
Well, I don't think there will be reparations paid, and what a better deal means lies in the eye of the beholder.
All right, and perhaps we've got 30 seconds. Anastasia, your final two thoughts, perhaps for a different perspective on that.
I believe that Germany has a moral obligation to pay Greece for the atrocities committed during the 3 years of the Nazi occupation. I believe that
do you think realistically, though, that will happen, is my question?
You never know. A few months ago, I never thought that Syriza would be in government.
All right, and a final thought from Eleonora. Where do you think this debate is going to end? With payment of reparations or not?
I think we are going to find a political solution or synergy. I don't think Germany will pay back. I think that we are going to find an agreement between the parts. And Europe won the Nobel Prize for Peace because we were able to find synergies between conflict. And I think this is the time to go back to this way of behaving.
All right, well, let's leave it there for now. There's obviously a lot more to discuss, but I'm sure we're going to have more shows in the future to talk about European integration issues. For our guests, let's give a thanks to Uli Bruckner in Berlin, Anastasia Giamali in Athens, and Eleonora Polli in Rome. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Inside Story. As always, if you've got something you'd like to add, you know where to go. Head over to our show page at aljazeera.com. You can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or send your tweets to @AJ Inside Story. I'm Sami Zaidan from the whole team. For now, it's goodbye.